The 16th century was a time of great upheaval in Europe. The Protestant Reformation, sparked by Martin Luther in 1517, was tearing at the fabric of the Catholic Church. New ideas about religion and society were spreading rapidly, often leading to conflict and violence. In this tumultuous environment, the city of Munster in Westphalia, Germany, became a focal point for radical religious and social change. Munster was a prosperous city known for its trade and its large, imposing cathedral. However, beneath the surface of prosperity, tensions simmered. The city's inhabitants were divided by social class and religious affiliation. The Catholic Church held considerable power, but its authority was being challenged by the growing influence of Protestant reformers. In this atmosphere of uncertainty and change, a radical new movement began to take root. Anabaptism. The Anabaptists, meaning rebaptizers, rejected infant baptism and advocated for adult baptism as a symbol of a conscious commitment to faith. They believed in a literal interpretation of the Bible and emphasized pacifism, communal living, and separation from the world. Their beliefs, seen as heretical by both Catholics and mainstream Protestants, attracted a following among those seeking a more radical and authentic form of Christianity. The Anabaptist movement gained momentum in Munster thanks to the charismatic leadership of men like Melchior Hoffman and Jan Matthys. These preachers arrived in the city in 1533, captivating audiences with their fiery sermons and promises of a new era of peace and righteousness. Their message resonated with the city's poor and marginalized, who were drawn to the Anabaptists' vision of a society built on equality and shared resources. The Anabaptists' influence in Munster grew rapidly. Their message of radical reform resonated with a population yearning for change. They condemned the wealth and corruption of the Catholic Church, promising a return to a simpler, more egalitarian society based on the teachings of the early Christians. Their message resonated particularly strongly with the city's lower classes, who saw in Anabaptism a chance for a better life. As the Anabaptist movement gained momentum, tensions with the city's established authorities escalated. The city council, dominated by wealthy merchants and Catholic clergy, viewed the Anabaptists as a threat to their power and the existing social order. They attempted to suppress the movement, banning Anabaptist preachers and imprisoning their followers. However, these measures only fueled the flames of discontent. In February 1534, the Anabaptists, led by Jan Matthys, seized control of Munster. The city's Catholic officials were expelled and the cathedral was stripped of its religious icons and decorations. Matthys declared Munster to be the New Jerusalem, a city chosen by God to usher in a new era of peace and righteousness. The city's inhabitants were called upon to repent their sins and embrace the Anabaptist faith. The Anabaptist takeover of Munster sent shockwaves throughout Europe. It was a dramatic demonstration of the power of religious fervor and the potential for radical ideas to overturn the established order. To the Anabaptist supporters, Munster represented a beacon of hope, a glimpse of a world transformed by faith. To their opponents, it was a dangerous experiment in religious fanaticism, a threat to the very foundations of society. Under Anabaptist rule, Munster underwent a dramatic transformation. The city became a living laboratory for their radical social and religious ideas. Private property was abolished and all goods were held in common, a radical experiment in communal living. This system, based on the Anabaptist interpretation of early Christian practices, aimed to create a society free from greed and inequality. The Anabaptist leaders introduced a strict moral code, banning gambling, drunkenness, and ostentatious clothing. They sought to create a community of saints purged of the sins and vices they believed plagued the outside world. The city's inhabitants were expected to live according to the dictates of the Bible, with strict punishments meted out for transgressions. Despite the hardships of life under siege, the Anabaptists in Munster were sustained by their faith and their belief in the righteousness of their cause. They saw themselves as God's chosen people, entrusted with the task of building a new society based on biblical principles. Their commitment to their beliefs was unwavering, even in the face of growing adversity. The Anabaptist experiment in Munster, though short-lived, had a profound impact on the development of religious and political thought in Europe. It demonstrated the power of religious ideas to mobilize people and challenge the existing order. It also highlighted the potential dangers of religious extremism and the fragility of societies in the face of radical change. The Anabaptist takeover of Munster provoked a swift and decisive response from the surrounding powers. Franz von Waldeck, the Prince Bishop of Munster, assembled an army and laid siege to the city. The siege, which began in April 1534, would last for over a year, subjecting the city's inhabitants to unimaginable hardship. The Anabaptists, led by the charismatic John of Leiden, who emerged as a leader after Matthys' death, were determined to defend their New Jerusalem. They fortified the city, stockpiled provisions, and prepared for a protracted struggle. They believed that God would protect them and deliver them from their enemies. The city's inhabitants, caught in the crossfire, endured shortages of food, medicine, and other essential supplies. Despite the hardships, the Anabaptist faith remained strong. They saw the siege as a test from God, a trial to prove their worthiness. They held religious services, sang hymns, and prayed for deliverance. John of Leiden, with his fiery sermons and unwavering belief in their divine mission, kept hope alive within the besieged city. The siege of Munster became a spectacle that captivated Europe. It was a stark illustration of the religious and political tensions of the age, a microcosm of the wider struggle between Catholicism and Protestantism. The fate of Munster and the radical experiment it represented was watched with anxiety and fascination by observers across the continent. Section 5. The Fall of the Kingdom, a bloody end to the experiment. The siege of Munster reached its climax in June 1535 when the city's defences were finally breached. The Prince Bishop's forces stormed the city, unleashing a wave of violence upon the Anabaptist defenders. John of Leiden, along with other Anabaptist leaders, was captured and imprisoned. The dream of a New Jerusalem lay in ruins. The fall of Munster was a brutal affair. The victorious forces showed little mercy to the defeated Anabaptists. John of Leiden and his lieutenants were subjected to public torture and execution. Their bodies were displayed in cages hanging from the tower of St. Lamberti Church as a gruesome warning to anyone who dared to challenge the established order. The Anabaptist experiment in Munster ended in bloodshed and defeat. The city was returned to Catholic control and the Anabaptist movement was driven underground. The dream of a New Jerusalem, a city governed by biblical principles, was shattered. However, the memory of Munster lived on, serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of religious extremism. The events in Munster had a profound impact on the development of religious and political thought in Europe. It reinforced the anxieties of the ruling classes about the threat posed by radical religious movements. It also led to a hardening of attitudes towards Anabaptists, who were increasingly viewed as dangerous heretics. Section 6. John of Leiden, prophet, king, and martyr. John of Leiden, the charismatic leader of the Anabaptists in Münster, remains a controversial figure to this day. To his two followers, he was a prophet, divinely appointed the leader who would usher in a new era of peace and righteousness. To his enemies, he was a dangerous fanatic, a demagogue who led his followers astray with promises of a utopian society. John of Leiden's background was humble. He was born in Leiden, Holland, and worked as a tailor before becoming involved in the Anabaptist movement. It was drawn to the movement's message of radical reform and its vision of a society based on biblical principles. His charisma and powerful oratory skills quickly made him a prominent figure within the movement. John of Leiden's arrival in Munster in 1534 marked a turning point in the city's history. He quickly rose to prominence, becoming the undisputed leader of the Anabaptist community. He oversaw the implementation of radical reforms, including the abolition of private property and the introduction of communal living. He also played a key role in the city's defense during the siege, inspiring his followers to resist the forces of the Prince Bishop. John of Leiden's reign in Munster was short-lived but dramatic. He declared himself king of the New Jerusalem, claiming divine authority to rule over the city. He introduced a number of controversial policies, including its polygamy, which further alienated the Anabaptists from the outside of the world. His rule ended in bloodshed when the city fell to the Prince Bishop's force. One of the most controversial aspects of the Anabaptist regime in Munster was the introduction of polygamy. John of Leiden, citing biblical precedent, declared that men were permitted to take multiple wives. This practice, which shocked and appalled the outside world, became a symbol of the Anabaptists' perceived fanaticism and deviance. The introduction of polygamy in Munster was driven by a number of factors. John of Leiden argued that it was a necessary measure to address the imbalance in the city's population, caused by the deaths of many men during the siege. He also claimed that it was a fulfillment of biblical prophecy, citing the example of Old Testament patriarchs who had multiple wives. The practice of polygamy in Munster was not without its critics, even within the Anabaptist community. Some saw it as a betrayal of the movement's original ideals of equality and simplicity. Others viewed it as an abuse of power by John of Leiden, who himself took 16 wives. Despite these criticisms, polygamy remained in place until the city's fall. The Anabaptists' embrace of polygamy had a significant impact on how they were perceived by the outside world. It reinforced the view of them as dangerous heretics, deviating from accepted norms of morality and social order. It also contributed to the widespread condemnation of the Anabaptist movement and the brutal repression it faced in the aftermath of the Munster Rebellion. The Anabaptist Kingdom of Münster, though short-lived and ultimately crushed, left a lasting legacy on European history and religious thought. The events in Munster served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of religious extremism and the potential for radical ideas to destabilize society. The Munster Rebellion had a profound impact on the development of the Anabaptist movement. It led to a split within the movement, with some groups distancing themselves from the radicalism of the Munsterites. The majority of Anabaptists, horrified by the violence and excesses of the Munster regime, reaffirmed their commitment to pacifism and separation from the world. Despite the negative associations stemming from Munster, the Anabaptist movement continued to spread throughout Europe. Anabaptist communities emphasizing pacifism, simplicity, and community emerged in various parts of Switzerland, Germany, and the Netherlands. These groups, often persecuted by both Catholic and Protestant authorities, played a significant role in shaping the development of religious toleration and freedom of conscience. The legacy of Munster also extends to the realm of political thought. The Anabaptist experiment in communal living and social reform, though flawed in its execution, inspired later generations of utopian thinkers and social reformers. Their ideas about equality, social justice, and the importance of community resonated with those seeking alternatives to the existing social order. Today, the city of Munster bears few visible scars of its turbulent Anabaptist past. The city has been rebuilt and modernized, its streets bustling with activity. However, the memory of the Anabaptist kingdom lingers, a reminder of a time when Munster was at the center of a religious and social revolution. The cages that once held the bodies of John of Leiden and his lieutenants still hang from the tower of St. Lamberti Church, a stark reminder of the brutality of the past. The church itself, restored to its former glory, stands as a symbol of the resilience of the city and its inhabitants. Munster has come to terms with its Anabaptist past, acknowledging both the tragedy and the historical significance of the events of 1534 to 1535. The city's museums and historical sites offer insights into the Anabaptist movement and the factors that led to the dramatic events of that era. The story of the Anabaptist Kingdom of Münster serves as a reminder of the power of religious ideas to shape history and the enduring human quest for a more just and equitable society. It also highlights the dangers of extremism and the importance of tolerance and understanding in navigating the complexities of religious and social change. The Anabaptist Kingdom of Münster stands as a unique and compelling episode in European history. It was a radical experiment in religious and social reform, driven by a fervent belief in the possibility of creating a new Jerusalem on earth. While the experiment ended in bloodshed and defeat, it offers valuable lessons about the complexities of religious belief, the dynamics of social change, and the enduring human search for a better world. The story of Munster reminds us of the power of religious ideas to inspire and mobilize people, but also to lead to extremism and violence. The Anabaptists' unwavering faith in their divine mission, while admirable in its conviction, ultimately blinded them to the realities of the world around them. Their belief in the imminent second coming and their desire to create a perfect society led them down a path of radicalism and ultimately self-destruction. The Munster Rebellion also highlights the challenges of implementing radical social change. The Anabaptists' attempt to create a society based on communal living and strict moral codes, while well-intentioned, proved unsustainable in the face of internal divisions and external pressures. Their experiment, though short-lived, serves as a cautionary tale about the difficulties of translating utopian ideals into reality. Despite its tragic end, the Anabaptist Kingdom of Münster offers valuable insights into the human condition. It reminds us of the enduring human quest for a more just and equitable society, a world free from poverty, oppression, and violence. It also highlights the dangers of extremism and the importance of moderation, tolerance, and understanding in navigating the complexities of religious and social change.